Oh, I can't spend the nose.
Like a $20 coffee, you know, so like anything that's it gets the job. It doesn't disappoint in the same way.
I'm glad stopped by. Take me to a baby.
It's gonna last. That's a well.
Take them up again.
Is there any subjects that are off topic that you do not want to talk about? Honestly, probably.
Oh, can you tell me who?
It's a little soft in the background.
Yeah. In the nose.
I want CBS to know I wasn't prescribed that.
Yeah.
I mean, just because I'm selling your line.
Don't want anyone to lose their license.
Jake Mazzone, what's going
What's
on?
going on, baby?
Thanks for coming over, man.
Oh yeah, I love to be here. You know.
For those of you that don't know Mr. Jake Mazzone, he is one of my childhood best friends. He was also the drummer in my first band. Do you remember the name of the band?
No, I don't know if we ever actually had an official name.
We just played a couple fish
My
fries.
brother would always mention like, "Oh, you should be the Poodoos," you know, which is some stupid like I guess not stupid, but you know, South American like deer animal. And so whenever I'm saying like, "Oh, like I'm just going to see Matt or something," he's always like, "Oh, we're getting the Poodoos back together." I'm like, that was never the name, but.
I mean, I think we should have some kind of reuniting when Sam is home. I mean,
right.
He's been playing a lot of heavy metal bass, so we got to see how that really lines up for our catalog.
I think that would be kind of funny just because the levels of our musicianships is just so different. Like, obviously, you're professional. Sam plays consistently.
Yeah.
And I have a 9-to-5 corporate job.
When you also switched instruments at some point. So let's start with this. What age did you start playing piano?
Piano was, I think, like 3 or 4 years old, but that was like one of those ages where I was
Uninterested.
not interested at all.
But still, I think like for someone's interest later on in music to have gotten the motor skills down and like the association between like different types of harmony, what sounds dissonant, what feels right. It really does change the way that someone can grow up, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the biggest thing with piano was at that age, even though you're not interested, you're still absorbing the information. The big thing was, I think, reading music. And I wasn't like able to sight read stuff, but when I was practicing, I was able to be looking at, you know, a piece of sheet music and say, okay, I know that's my G, I know my, you know, treble clefs, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So that laid a good foundation for, you know, future music stuff.
Yeah. And you played piano in like lessons up until like 10 or 11, right?
I think I stopped before that. I think I stopped around the age of 8, maybe like 3 to 8. So it was lessons. I did some recitals, you know, here and there when I was playing, you know, lightly row, you know, shout out Suzuki Piano Method. If anybody knows. Yeah, you know, so doing that stuff for about like 4 years, 5 years. And no, as much as I hated it as a time, at the time, I think I, you know, was really good for me, and I wish I was more dedicated. But again, I was 4. I like dinosaurs.
So, I had shit to do, Mom.
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff going on.
Well, I think like just sitting down these days and seeing what you're still capable of has to bring up like it unlocks a different level of memory. You know, like having a fine motor skill, like tasks to do, kind of puts you back in that seat as a young kid experiencing that music for the first time, you know?
Right. And there's still stuff I learned when I was 4 that I can still, you know, rip on the piano. You know, it's nothing like it's not amazing, but I'm like, I still have that, you know, memory. And
it's
that,
not a panty dropper, but it's
yeah,
still good.
I still have that muscle memory. Exactly. If you want to hear Go Tell Aunt Rhody, you know, I can rip that. You know, it sounds great.
So when did you switch to drums?
Drums was in 5th grade. So
okay.
I remember taking my first drum lesson in like 5th grade. With Chris Ellison, who you know, and
drummer of the Fields, one of my favorite Cincinnati bands.
Great drummer, phenomenal teacher, great guy. And then from there is like all through my youth, so all through high school, and then obviously that was a not very mobile instrument. So once I went off to college, it was kind of tough for me to take that with me. But you know, I still try to keep up with it, but it's still hard.
Is that why you got a guitar? Is because you wanted to be able to play something at that point, or was it like just being called to a different instrument at that point in time?
It was really out of necessity for needing to do something because, so after my freshman year of college, I ended up staying on campus in Columbus at Ohio State to the Ohio State University.
You can just call it the. People know what you're talking about.
So I was up at the for the summer, I was staying at my brother's house. He was back in Cincinnati for the summer. He was working, and I was so bored because I had nothing going on and like nothing to do. Like it was freshman year, so like none of my friends really stayed on campus because everyone went back home. So I always wanted to learn the guitar, and I kind of was okay. Like this is the time. You have all this free time. You know, taking a couple classes, working 15 hours a week. You have so much time to sit down and learn a hobby or learn a new skill. So I looked at Craigslist, bought like this $100 beater guitar. Still have it, still kind of use it as my fuck around guitar a little bit.
Yeah, the one that you're gonna put in the back of the car and just leave there for the weekend. If you don't play it, you don't play it, kind of a deal.
Right. So it was kind of out of that like desire to keep my mind busy, keep my hands busy, and like always like this youthful desire of like everyone wants to play guitar, man. Like everyone wants to play guitar.
And I think as a kid that played in a band, you always want to play what the other guys are doing. It's
right.
Like guitar players want to be drummers, and drummers want to play a little bit of bass, and then they find out that the bass is for the simpletons, so you start playing guitar.
The bass gets no chick, so no one wants to play it.
Well, I think like a weirder case in point is like someone like Sam who is a pianist, like a really strong piano player. And he's like, nah, man, I want to play one note at a time and just get her done.
And just get it done.
It's like, why would that appeal to you at that point in time? I have no idea.
I don't know. I feel like it's something about bassists, like if you look up like all of it, it's something about the mentality of it. And like, I feel like if you look at a lot of bands, I look at like John Paul Jones of Zepp for an example, like they play a million instruments. Like he was there playing like the harpsichord, he was playing the piano, he was playing like the mandolin, and like I look at Sam, like piano, bass, accordion, like he's just got all these instruments that he's able to play.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it has something to do with like I just want to fill in the gaps as a bassist, or like be the driving force. So if we need to add some color with an accordion, or if we need a mandolin on this track, like I can play it,
Yeah.
So that's his kind of.
Well, like in a simple way, you have the most influence over what's happening with the band. It's like if someone's playing a C major chord and you put an E over it, that's pretty much an E minor at that point, right?
Right.
I don't know how that necessarily works. I'm a guitar player. I don't even know a fucking key we're in most of the time. But it's like just start to feel the ways that they can change the context of the chord kind of as they please. Makes you realize how valuable that job is and how much you need to think ahead about what's going on in the music on that instrument.
Right. And if you listen to like any, full 4-piece, 5-piece band that has, a pretty competent bassist, and you have like headphones on that you can kind of hear it a little more clear in the background, I mean, it really drives the music a lot of times. There's some like pretty sexy stuff they're doing that goes so under the radar because you're listening for, the melody, you're listening for the guitar, maybe like a nasty drum fill or something.
Yeah.
And you miss out on that little like inflections of color that the bass is adding, and you kind of like tune in on it. You're like, oh man, that was kind of slick.
And as someone that it's not your main gig. It's not like you've wanted to take this into profession. But do you think playing at that young of an age has made you way more interested in the music overall, or has that just kind of been like your social circle?
No, I think 100% it made me more interested in it. And I mean, I was afforded friends that were also into music, and like you and Sam, obviously. So that helps nurture that, And I also played in like middle school and high school bands, which is a little more.
Did you do drumline?
Oh yeah, I did drumline. Yeah.
I feel like that's like the weirdest of musician camaraderie. It's like being on the football team, kind of aggressive, except you're just up there being the bitch with the cymbals and only gets to play every 32 bars.
Right.
You know?
that was more like drumline was fun because you get to play loud. You're encouraged to play loud because you're playing in open air.
Yeah.
Settings. You're playing over sousaphones and trombones, like these huge brass instruments. So they're just saying play as loud as you can, so at least people can march in time. I always thought when you're playing in like that formal setting in a band, it's more like we played like symphonic band and like with orchestras and stuff too. Mm-hmm. That was the worst shit ever because you would have a 32 bar rest. You'd come in with one little cymbal roll, and then you're done for the rest of the song, or done for the rest of the musical piece, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And so
you're so minimalist and kind of textural.
You're doing nothing. So like, like that was a cool experience because you got to play again more variety of music, but half the time you're just kind of goofing off in the back and getting yelled at by the conductor because you're a shithead 16-year-old, just trying to keep yourself occupied.
Yeah, just trying to wait for your time to come up.
Right.
In those kind of settings, though, like that's when you're first getting introduced to like marimba and things like that.
Yeah.
Did you find that interesting coming from a melodic background, moving to a non-melodic instrument, and then kind of coming back to that?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool that you had a lot of variety, and so that's where the piano kind of comes back into play. Is that a lot of other percussionists that I played with, they're really good percussionists, but they maybe didn't have any melody background, piano background. And if you play an instrument like the marimba, xylophone, like the vibraphone, it's all the same
It's laid out
as a piano. So I never did like formal lessons with those instruments, but at least I could figure out, okay, I know where my C's are, I know where my D's are, I know where my E flats are, all that stuff. And I could figure stuff out, a little competently. I wouldn't say I could read music very well with the marimba. I just wasn't good enough at like quickly hopping around on those instruments. But
well, it's such a weird like the technician side of that, of not only having aim but having touch, having sensitivity to certain things. It's like the way you strike in your upper octaves versus your lower octaves is going to imply a lot of the mutual resonance and the way the whole instrument kind of feels, especially on vibraphone, where you get like this weird jazzy kind of setting, and it's like you want to whack it like a tom. It's like there's no room for that.
You gotta have a little bit of nuance with
Yes.
it, a little bit of finesse when you're hitting those instruments.
For sure.
And the vibraphone is a good point because you have that pedal and you want to kind of let loose on that pedal, let it really ring out, but you gotta dial it back.
Yeah.
So when you hit the pedal, it makes it a little more worth it.
So did the drum set always appeal to you the most out of all that, or did you find yourself loving the quads or something like that and marching? Or
That's a great question. I think drum set will always be king. I feel like that's always just going to be the most fun to play, because you're playing the most fun music. You're playing the most variety of music. I think I'd probably, if I had to power rank the two, have to put that in front. But I will say there's something about being in a drum line and playing, with, a whole, just percussion, and just really just letting it loose. And, they were both just so much fun.
Yeah, the camaraderie of a drum line, and also the need to be just synced in together, not just down to the way that you're playing these paradiddles and whatnot, but like having all the emotional aspects to it, where it's like, no, you gotta get that stick hand up so it's gonna look symmetrical as we go down the lines. Like put the short kids on the side so it looks a little less weird. And also seeing the way that the hierarchy kind of works amongst kids that are in drum lines, like it is a tense social situation. Like I feel like there's a lot more hazing in a drum line than you get in most band contexts.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe it's because they shut that down a little bit, but I don't know. Like beforehand, like it was a while. It was probably like 10 years ago at this point. When I was in high school, it felt like very just typical freshman, sophomore, junior, senior hierarchy. Freshmen would get shit on a little bit more, but it was all in good banter, all in good fun. And juniors and seniors kind of would just, do whatever.
Yeah.
But it was a weird vibe. It definitely was a weird vibe. You get all those like American Pie, Bandcamp stuff, nothing like that, but it's always the band kids doing weird shit.
For sure. It's just bound to be the more like intellectual and uncomfortable of the mix. Like it's part of the instrument itself.
Right.
But at Princeton, did y'all have a big band?
Yeah, so Princeton's big thing, which I always appreciated, was that music was never an outside of school activity, so it was always a class in the middle of the day. So because of that, people didn't have to choose between sports or other clubs and music. So if you did music, you didn't have to quit your sport or vice versa. So because of that, we had a lot of people retain music like after middle school. Mm-hmm. So we have people on the football team that still were in band. They weren't doing marching band, but they're still able to play their instrument, be in the orchestra, do all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that is why there's so many kids at that school that did music, was because they didn't have to choose to not do it. Because I honestly think, and it's not just unique to that school in particular, but if you're giving a 13-year-old, they have so much energy. I'm talking about like a 7th or 8th grader. If you're giving them like a sport and an instrument to play, they're going to want to do both. Mm-hmm. And telling them at 14 or 15, you got to choose just to do one
Yeah.
is unfair to that kid because they're both so beneficial for their own reasons. Just from a social aspect, but from a skill aspect, confidence aspect, they're both really, really important.
Yeah, I've never really thought about like going to a school like Moeller. Like kids did have to choose, and you would have kids there trying to play in jazz band and be on the football team, and both sides of their world, you're kind of saying like, why the fuck are you doing that stuff?
Right.
And for people to have to make that compromise, like, yeah, in high school it may seem like you're playing both sides, but when you step away from that experience, it's like, what more would you want from your formative years than a well-rounded opportunity to try these things? Because when you're an adult, it's not like you can find a jazz band to suck in, It's
Right,
like,
exactly.
if you're gonna do this, fucking do it now.
Yeah, and it gives you that opportunity, like you said, like I can play as a 15-year-old. It's not going to be great, but at least I get to work at it. Then in 3 years, when I'm on the cusp of being an adult, I can see my progress that I made it from the age of 14, 15 to 18. So much better as a musician, but hey, I also got to play a sport at the same time and get that confidence going as well with whatever, team sports, individual sports, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it's really important,
When as someone that took lessons alongside like your older brother for most of your life on most of your instruments, did y'all have a competitive relationship in that, or was it kind of like more camaraderie and understanding?
Yeah, I think it was more camaraderie and understanding. Me and Vinny were always competitive in other things, but I think when it got to the point where we were like on the same team and the same band, it never really like got to that point.
Yeah.
Especially in sports, we played sports together as well, but he was 2 years older, so by the time he was a senior, I was a sophomore. He was getting, varsity starts. I was on the bench. So it was never like, I was never bitching, like, why is this guy in front of me? It's like, I knew he should be in front of me because he's 2 years older than me. So, like,
Yes.
and he was better than me. So it made sense that he was in front of me. And then when we were playing music, it was kind of the same deal. We all had the friends that were, in the music with us, in drumline, in percussion with us. So I feel like it'd just been weird if we were just like butting heads about that,
Yeah, but that's just some brothers. I mean, they'll fight about fucking everything.
We fight about other stuff, but not that.
Yeah, no.
Exactly.
So y'all both played water polo and tennis all throughout high school?
No, tennis we stopped. I stopped, I think, in middle school. Like 7th or 8th grade was my last year of tennis. I was never very good, so.
You say that, but I remember you kicking my ass in tennis when we were
Maybe
kids.
you weren't very good.
Yeah, I was garbage. I remember taking those lessons and being like, I don't get how you swing it. And they're like, well, you're trying to make contact to start, so like quit worrying about the swinging thing and just hit the fucking
Or maybe
ball.
you were too good of a baseball player, and then
Yeah, obviously not.
Yeah, and then you just wanted to hit home runs all the time.
Nah, dude, I think I had such a fear of any projectile coming at me. Like reacting in a skillful way was always just like really low on the totem. It's just like fucking move, bro.
Yeah. No, so me and Vinny, we swam and did the water polo thing. So just
What a
those two
violent
sports.
sport. I mean,
It's tough,
I've
man.
never played any type of game that involves someone trying to drown you.
Oh, yeah.
Besides, like, get away from my brothers. Like, I remember when I was a kid, David used to put me through what he called the washing machine, where he'd grab my feet and he'd push out and he'd drag me under the water so it'd make I'll go up my nose and shit. And it's
Okay, he's like
after
junior
that-
waterboarding.
Yeah, exactly. It was very low key waterboarding, so like I couldn't go through a sport like that. Where
Yeah.
you're trying to get a shot off, and this guy's like, I'm gonna get him by the jugular.
Yeah, just like make sure the ref's not looking. We can hit him a little bit.
Wait, there is a lot of foul play in that sport.
Oh
right?
yeah. It's mostly like under the water, and like it really depends. I feel like I was always trying to be like a cleaner player because karma and all that stuff. If you start shit, you better be ready to finish it.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to be like, okay, like I'm gonna pick on somebody 50 pounds heavier than me and like see what he's got going on. So yeah, a lot of stuff would happen. Like under the water, people would get hit, punched, dragged, pulled, all that stuff. I knew kids that like broke fingers and stuff. Not personally, but like in the area, there's a tournament where someone got their fingers broken and
Fingers, plural.
fingers. He got his
Bro.
fingers grabbed and twisted, and it was a big deal.
That's violent as hell.
Yeah, dude. And these kids are like, you're 17, 18. Like,
Yeah.
just chill out, man.
And this isn't really like a big money collegiate sport. It's not like this W is gonna make or break the fact that you could go to college for free.
Oh,
It's
I'm
like-
telling you, if there's scholarships, we're not giving them to Ohio kids that play water polo. Really? I mean, like swimming, yes, but like water polo, I feel like that's a California kind of. It's got the monopoly on that.
Word.
Yeah, California and Eastern Europe.
How bizarre.
Yeah.
Is it just the ability to tread water and being used to that at a young age?
It's just like the infrastructure's there. I feel like here, like kids start playing at later on, and they're playing it like it's a youth soccer thing. So you have kids playing at 7 years old,
Yeah.
and if you have a 6-year head start on other people, and you also have way more bodies playing, you're going to be able to produce better players.
Yeah. So, and you still go and play recreationally every once in a while,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I play like about once a week, you know. I just
No
got back
shit.
into it. I got back into it like about a year ago.
That's
just
wild. Where the hell are they having once a week pickup?
yeah, they do pickup. They do it like sometimes they do it at St. X, and they sometimes do it out at Pal Crosley YMCA by Winton.
Cool.
Winton Woods. So I got back into that when I moved back to Cincinnati. I was playing out in Utah when I lived there.
Nice.
And that's kind of when I got out there. But it's such a niche sport. You're always like, who the hell is still an adult playing this shit?
Yeah, well, who's capable of it? I mean,
Right.
it's pretty demanding. It's not like going out and playing soccer where it's like I use my legs all the time. I know I'm capable
Right,
of
I
doing
can
this.
run,
It's like,
you know.
Yeah, you're going to lose your lung capacity, your ability to tread like that pretty quickly if you don't do it.
Yeah, I think it's like psychos that are kind of doing it, like keeping up with it, because some guys, they're, like 40, 45 years old and they're still beasts, and you're like, what's going on with you? Like what's going
Who
on?
doesn't love you right now that you're trying to impress with this?
You got to really, really take some anger out. And, it's funny. It's just funny seeing these guys that really, it's like almost like triathloners, like hardcore Ironman triathloners that are really, really into it. But these guys aren't intense at all. I just kind of use that as a funny comparison,
For sure, but I think like there's a very particular type of person that leaves high school and still continues to play their sports wherever they can find it, and it doesn't seem to me to be like really competitive folks, like because folks that have just a competitive urge, they find something in their line of work to compete with because it has metric delivery of success, like there's something quantifiable to that, versus the folks that go out and play soccer with you on Saturdays. It's like it seems like it's more just like, oh, it's my time to step away from everything else. Like,
it's
a bit
just
of
fun.
escapism.
I feel like sports are just fun. It's just like music. If you want to go out and play sports, it's just, again, really good way to exercise. Better than just doing straight running or straight swimming. But it is just fun to play a sport. Humans have been doing it for thousands of years. In some capacity.
Yeah.
So why would you want to stop? Just because you have a real boy, like big boy job, like why would you want to? My dad, for example, he's 63. He still plays soccer like twice a week.
That's impressive.
But he's just a fucking animal, dude.
Yeah.
He's insane.
Tony Mazzone.
He's an animal, certified animal.
Yeah. Did he play in high school?
No, he was a baseball player. He was a really good baseball
No
player,
shit.
actually. Yeah, he didn't really start playing soccer until I think he's like played a little bit growing up in like middle school maybe, and started playing like more like soccer like in high school. But I think back in our parents' day, like soccer really wasn't a sport,
It's un-American.
It was un-American as hell. That was true. It was a commie sport, and these guys didn't want to play it, or they just didn't have teams. So I don't think my dad's high school even had a soccer team.
No shit.
Yeah. But he grew up in the.
It's like either you play football or you go over there with the Nancys and you watch.
Right. That's exactly what they told him. And so he would play baseball. Like all of his brothers played baseball, and I think he just got really like into soccer because I think he probably enjoyed like the running aspect, and it's a little more like, especially when you get to adult league, it's a little more interactive.
Yeah.
You see those beer league softballs and you get like the softball leagues, and you're up to bat 4 times a game. Maybe you're playing right field because you suck, so like you get maybe two pop
balls.
flies. Yeah, and that's it. You drink 10 beers, and
The rest of the time we're just out there dipping.
that's a Wednesday night, baby.
I do love in like adult pickup sports, just like the side flare of like drinking a little too much for like something that's really athletically involved. It's like, you guys want to go rip some 40s and play pickup on the gravel court outside my house? It's double rim basketball. It's like, what are we really trying to do out here?
Well, I think it's funny because you're like, the way you describe that is probably like a 16-year-old like thinks about like they're like a very athletic 16-year-old thinks about like a perfect night, like let's drink and just play these sports, except now they're like 35 years old and they're doing it on Tuesday and they get severely hungover as opposed to just walking it off.
I don't know. Maybe the best way to drink is to do something active so you can burn
Burn it
off.
off. Yeah, that's a good point.
But honestly, you're probably just dehydrating yourself more, so the hangover probably is
Yeah,
worse.
it's probably not great.
I don't know how that math really works out. What if
Yeah.
you did a couple salt bumps? You know what I mean? Like keep your sodium level high.
You have little like soft pretzels on the sideline.
Exactly. A little beer cheese, a little beer.
I think that's gonna be good for the gastrointestinal system, all that good stuff.
I'm sure you'll take a crazy dump after. I am sure.
Yeah, that concoction's gonna really boil up inside of you.
Yeah. So what'd you go to Ohio State for?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I mean, I think honestly, I had at the time, I'm trying to remember, but I mean, it helped that my brother was there, so he kind of like did the scout work for me a little bit. He wanted to go there, but I could, pick his brain about like what's, good about the school, what's bad about the school. But I mean, out of all of the, schools I was looking at, so obviously UC, Ohio State, I think I was looking at like Pitt, Miami, pretty local stuff.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee, I kind of looked at.
You don't do enough cocaine to look at Miami. You know
Yeah.
that?
Oh, no, Miami of Ohio. Unless it's the same thing. Yeah.
I think it's actually worse at Miami of Ohio.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The other one's pronounced Miami.
Yeah. But Ohio State, I think I picked that one just because I wanted to go to a big school. Obviously, Ohio State's huge.
Overwhelming,
huge. But the campus is awesome. It's close enough to home, and they had a lot of just like stuff going on for it in terms of like majors. I didn't really know what exact major I wanted to be in.
Yeah,
and they have just solid stuff across the board.
So what'd you do? Go in business undecided? And then...
I went in more like computer science undecided, and then kind of burnt out of that. Didn't really enjoy the engineering aspect of it. I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do calculations for the rest of my life kind of deal.
Yeah.
And the computer science was always interesting to me, but I felt that was a lot of, looking at code and computer stuff. So I ended up doing business information systems, which was kind of business and a little bit of CS.
Yeah.
As a
Did a lot
combo.
of those like prereqs, like that first year stuff kind of roll over and end up playing out well? Or did you have to go into a fifth year kind of a deal? And...
Yeah, so some of them did, but I ended up doing 5 years just because college is such a fucking scam. But the way
you said I did 5 years was very like felonious.
Oh no, it was a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, I had a great time that fifth year. But I mean, like the way the classes, like, oh, you have to take this class before you can take the next class. The way those prereqs all stacked up against each other, I ended up having to take like an extra 2 semesters. But each of those semesters, I was taking minimal credits because I didn't really need that many credit hours to graduate. It was just like a handful of classes that I needed to get that degree.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I did that 5 years, and the prereqs kind of helped my first year, but ultimately, it,
kind of screwed you.
which again, sucks, but I'll never regret next year of college.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like once it's paid off, it was part of the experience.
Sure.
And like
sure.
freshman year is kind of a wash. You live in your cell,
Right. You're 18 as opposed to 22, so you kind of have like a little bit of a different perspective on it.
Yeah, you're not still going to what's the bar that starts with a W? The one with the moose on it.
Oh, you talking about Bullwinkle's?
Bullwinkle's.
Oh, yeah. I think Bullwinkle's had to rebrand because they were letting too many kids in.
Yeah.
It
seems like an issue.
But I'm going to say kids, I mean like 16, 15, like not like 18, 19. I'm talking like sophomores in a high school.
Freshman.
Yeah, like I'm talking like, like closer to middle school than they are to college.
Violent.
Yeah,
That's so awful.
Just heinous stuff.
I only visited Ohio State maybe once or twice. I feel like I went with you to one party maybe at one point and like was very overwhelmed by what that scene looked like.
Oh yeah.
But I remember the other time that I was up there, I did go to Bullwinkle's and it was just like 5 people that didn't look old enough to be there and a lot of fog. like a lot of fog machines working really hard.
Really hard to make you forget you're at Bullwinkle's.
Yes,
maybe
masking the vibe.
Maybe if we put enough of a veil in front of your eyes, you'll forget what bar you're at, and buy more bombs.
So what was the main like upperclassman bar that Ohio State kind of has?
So it's, I don't know, have you been up to Columbus recently? Have you been up to?
No, I avoided.
So they've completely, like, since I've even graduated, 5 years ago, 4 years, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, they've just changed everything. They started doing it really like my sophomore year of college and knocked down kind of all of those divey, gritty, high street bars, which are so much fun.
Yeah.
And replaced it with retail, Targets, CVS pharmacies, Chick-fil-A.
that.
It sucks, dude.
Yeah.
It sucks. I was just back on campus like a month and a half ago with Timmy Fortner.
Nice. The goat.
Yeah, the goat. Me and Tim were up there, and because he lives in Columbus right now, so we went to just up there to hang out for game day, and that was my first time back on campus in years. And I was looking, and I was like, I didn't recognize a single thing.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, so the bars that are still there, it was Out or In. That's an institution. That's been there for like 50, 60 years. I don't think they'll ever take that one down.
Yeah.
And that's a great bar, so I hope they don't. But the other
Out
ones...
or In?
Out or INN. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good name. It's a really good name. So that one's still up there, and but the other ones that I really remember, like the fun ones, they're kind of all gone. Like Ethel is there, Midway, which is a shit show bar, but that's still there. And the other like 3 or 4 that people used to go to, they just kind of either relocated or just bought them out, and they never set up shop again.
Yeah, and with the amount of districts of like student housing, it doesn't really seem like a go to the bars type of school.
I mean, it used to be kind of like 50-50, like parties, bars, because everyone likes to just the ease of I can go to a bar and see 20 people I know there without
I don't
having
need to carry a case.
I don't have to like worry about who's showing up to my house or whatever. So it was kind of like a 50-50 school. You know, they had a lot of house parties, had a lot of good bar scene. People sometimes would go like downtown or like Short North area, and do that stuff. But there's just a lot going on. Yeah.
So what landed you in Boston after that?
So that's funny. So I had a job offer, and I just kind of went where they told me to go. They gave me a couple options. They said Boston, Minneapolis, and then Austin, Texas.
Nice.
And then Austin got yanked off the table within like 2 days because it filled up. They filled up with applicants and people. So
what kind of job was it?
It was a software implementation job for Oracle.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was it's still kind of what I'm doing right now, just for a different company.
Yeah. Is that a lot of on-site work or?
It can be. I have gone on site, but it really depends on the customer you're working with. So typically you are meeting with customers, but you're just doing a lot of, Zoom calls, which I prefer because, I don't love having to travel for business. It's not like it's not like you're doing it for fun.
Well, if it's software, it's like it's probably better for me just to take over your screen and walk you through this than to be like leaning over your shoulder at your desk like, let's make sure we don't touch hands when I reach for your mouse.
Right.
The tension's already high enough, brother.
Right. The one thing, and then like you're typically you'll be working with a customer for an hour or 2 in a day, but when you're on site, they're paying for you to be there all day. So you're hanging out with them all day, then maybe you have to go out with them afterwards, and you're just kind of like, get me away from these people. Like I don't mind working with you, but like I need to like get out of this work mode for a little bit.
Yeah. My favorite thing about like playing in the steakhouses is watching like dinners gone wrong that were supposed to be like work events, and now it ends up being like a dude with his higher up who's trashed, and he's trying to like tell this client it's not normally how it is. Like you don't see it a lot.
Oh yeah.
But it's like couple tables
the salad hasn't even come out yet.
Yeah, exactly. Some escorts, some bad business deals, an uncomfortable double date, and then someone's fucking birthday.
Yeah, then you have like the 14-year-old kid just having the time of his life,
Totally.
Yeah.
Or you get like the professional sports teams where it's like everyone else is dressed in the nines, and this guy's like, I'm gonna look real sweet rolling in there with my pads still on.
Yeah.
It's like, are you wearing a hoodie and high knee socks? Like, nice. Championship status.
I always wondered that. Yeah, that's a great point that you make. Like just the people watching when you're performing.
Sensational.
It's probably so much fun, man.
Well, especially in places like that where they're not there to see the show. They're not watching me watch them.
You're the background music. They have no idea that you're like, or they've already like kind of like put you in the back of their minds.
Yes.
They still hear you, but like they don't know that you're like eagle-eyeing them, just saying like, I wonder what's going on at that table.
I think that's why a lot of frontmen throughout history have decided to wear sunglasses so you can watch but not worry about people knowing you're watching.
Right.
Like there's nothing worse than, I think up until a point where phones become the main distraction of life, people were a little more comfortable with eye contact. Versus at this point, if I look at you and you look at me, we both agree to go the opposite way at that point in time.
Right,
you can't hold it for any extent.
No.
So if I want to watch your date go poorly, I need to sunny up,
Sunny out of a dimly lit steakhouse.
Yes.
They'll think you're Stevie Wonder on the guitar.
Well, honestly, I am trying to give them the idea that I don't know what's going on out there.
Right.
Like I'm trying to seem a little bit like unobservant.
Well, if anything, you'll give them something to break like the awkwardness of the conversation. Like, hey, the music's pretty good tonight. Just kind of like give him something, or give the guy, if he says something wrong, give him like an out. Just quickly like say something. Hopefully, you're like doing that service for them.
Or harass them. The moment I see eye contact, that's when I'm gonna say some weird shit to you.
Oh yeah.
You gotta simmer with it for a few minutes.
Oh, when you're at MLT that like a couple weeks ago after your wedding, you were just vibing with the patrons there. They were loving it, dude.
There's some really nice locals at MLT, but like that part of town's become a lot less of recently graduated kids that love going out to the bar, and it's more like stuffy residential at this point. Like you live over there, you know better than I do. but it's almost it's become more of a family-esque neighborhood, and bars like that I think are suffering to some extent.
Yeah, I don't. So like my, I guess, experience with Cincinnati has been like I haven't lived here in 10 years.
Yeah.
So I like know all these neighborhoods, but I don't really like know exactly like what the the vibes are, what kind of the character of these neighborhoods are, besides what I remember when I was like 15. So like coming back to Mount Lookout, like Hyde Park, kind of feeling that all out. I kind of expected, like you said, I kind of expected more, and it still is a young crowd, don't get me wrong, but like very residential. I mean, like finding a place just to rent as an apartment was tough because everything is residential. All the apartments are new builds that are in Oakley, so not really in the neighborhood.
And when you start to look in those parts of town, it's like, it's understandable that anyone that was owning a spot, renting a room, said, I'd rather just flip this to the next guy who's going to rent the entire house rather than be the one living downstairs with a stranger above me or something like that. Exactly. But it is kind of a bummer that you used to have parts of town and like your neighborhood be your social circle. And because we don't really look for that in person as much as we used to, it's become a lot more spread out. I think people have less desire for a certain location for the fact of being walkable to places that they want to kick it on the weekend, you know?
And I think that has to just do with just any big city. When you have the suburban kind of sprawl or just, there's not really a city center that's getting planned when you are building these neighborhoods or, even, here in Evendale, it's still 30, 40 years old. So it's not like a new neighborhood.
Yeah.
But, it's houses. We have Glendale, Milford, and Reading Road and like rec center, which is great, but we don't
championship status.
We don't have champions all the time, but we just don't have like a watering hole that we can like go to, which me and Ben Cedar have always talked about this. Like we need to establish like the gritty, like, a little dingy, just local watering hole.
I will say, I think it's going to be the putt-putt course.
I think it's going to be Acres. That's what we were saying.
They're the only ones that's trying for that. And like, so Todd came on the podcast once, and I forgot to record it, so we just hung out and drank for like an hour and a half, and then found out that nothing was on the record. But he's coming over in a couple weeks to do the same. You have to be a really particular type of person to want to run a bar that you're going to be at most of the time. Right. I feel like most bar owners these days are absentees, whereas it used to be that if you owned a bar, that was where you bartended, that's where you went every night, that's where your friends hung out. He's one of those types of owners. And the Village isn't going to get a lot of opportunities at a local watering hole. It's like, let's establish some golf cart parking, make sure that we build some underground tunnels for Hildy, and make Believendale something to fucking cheer
Let's
on.
get something. And it's always rocking, dude. It's been open for a couple months now, and every time you drive past, maybe different now because it's a little colder, but people are still grinding. People are still hitting balls. It's 30 degrees out. They're still working on their, short game.
Yeah, but what's better than throwing darts, hitting balls in a warm bunker,
Right. So like that was, and those guys are also, because I don't know if I met him or his brothers, but those guys are so into it, dude.
Yeah.
And like you can tell, like when you talk to them, they're so like that was their passion project, and they're so excited about getting that open. And yeah, they're not gonna be absentee. They're not gonna just like set it up and like just let the money print.
Yeah.
They're actually gonna be good curators of making this a fun spot to go to, and that's what's really important. And to your point, yeah, I feel like a lot of bar owners or just maybe like business owners just kind of lose touch of like, why is this watering hole here?
Yeah.
And still making money, but it loses that charm a little bit. And better than me because you're playing all the time at these bars.
Well, and I'm talking to owners about what they feel is worth it for their club. It's like when you're trying to negotiate rates and how frequently you want to be at a place, someone who's in the room every single night has a very different impression than the person who just wants to see something get checked off the list.
Right.
And that comes down to quality and quantity in every aspect of it. Like, I'm more absentee owners willing to give me a year's worth of dates because they don't have the time to refine and appreciate what's going to happen in there. Whereas if it's your bar that you're at every night of the week, you don't want to hear the same band in the next 3 months, okay? You want to do it once and then wait a little while. So they're a little more choicey, but they know what it's worth to be in there and feel the room and how it takes off and that. So,
yeah, I feel like John Taffet right now in the bar rescue,
Dude, that show's done a lot, though, where it's like people don't realize the shit show that it is.
Right.
Like I was talking to Todd about running a kitchen. It's like just to venture into having food at a putt-putt course is such a difficult thing to imagine. But it's like any other bar where the kitchen staff is a little bit more of a rowdy crowd of people. It's just who would be interested.
I feel like that's who I want making my burger.
Exactly.
You know?
You don't want them to be the type that wouldn't go out till 6 a.m. But,
Yeah.
To employ folks that are the rowdier type that want to be doing that, it comes with some ups and downs of understanding. And
Sure.
you either need to be one of them or come to terms with them.
Right,
So,
you need to meet them on solid ground.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need to go out till 6 a.m. with them. You know?
Right.
But it's also tough when you're the one bar in the neighborhood trying to do that, where it's like you go down Reading and you get the most bars per capita in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so you're competing with two very different demographics of people. One is like parents who just recently had an empty nest and probably have the expendable income to go drink somewhere, but you need to make it appealing to come down the street.
Right.
Versus, I drink every night because it's the only time I'm not hanging out with my kids. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, your kid is at the bar with you.
Yeah. Your kid needs to drink too, or else he's not allowed in. 2 beer minimum.
It's one of those types of clubs. Eh? Did you see yourself being like the typical Cincinnatian, where like you left for long enough to be like, all right, baby, I'm going home, or did happenstance just bring you
No,
back?
I always kind of figured I wanted to be back. Even when I initially moved out east.
Yeah.
I just feel like being away from family's tough, and like I don't like both your parents are they're both their parents' side is from Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're all Cincinnati.
Yeah, my dad is Dayton, my mom is Cincinnati, so like they're all within this 45-minute radius. So just living out east, it was a lot of fun. I loved Boston. It's a great time. But you do kind of put a lot of things into perspective in terms of like, where do I want to end up? Like, where do I see my values in terms of, am I comfortable seeing my parents 3 times a year for the rest of my life? Kind of like those questions.
Yeah.
And I never was comfortable with only seeing my parents, my family, like 3 times a year. So always knew I was going to come back.
Yeah.
And then the other big thing too is when you move out is, I feel like, and a lot of people say this, it's a little, I think everyone says about their own hometown, but there's a certain aura that like the Midwest, in particular Cincinnati, people have that are just so friendly, welcoming, and warm. Mm-hmm. And it's just so genuine. I feel like there's a lot more just authenticity here.
I can understand that in Boston, where it's like you lived in a neighborhood of like Ivy League schools and big money, so it's like there's a different.
It's just
aura
not my
what's going
world.
on there.
Yeah,
and what I can get, like you get a lot of characters that are trying to put something on there, but Salt Lake doesn't seem like that to me. Like,
yeah, Salt Lake. So after Boston, I moved to Salt Lake, and Salt Lake is a weird town too because it's all transplants. It's blown up over the last 5-10 years. And so
no one's from there.
No one's local.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of West Coasters, like a lot of Californians. I was lucky enough that a lot of my college friends moved out there too, and we all ended up out there. So I had like 4 or 5 college buddies that ended up there. So it wasn't like I had to completely go out net new and just make a ton of friends, I did, but I had a nice little like support, like safety blanket, with all those friends coming out. So that made it a lot easier to get acclimated and
Did you feel in Boston that you had to do that, where you had to start completely over and building a support system and a network of
I
friends?
kind of had to build like a whole new friend group in Boston, which was interesting. I mean, It was easy. I had one college friend that also ended up out there. He's more of a friend, but we became, pretty close when we both found out we were moving out there. And then I got lucky with my, my coworkers. One of my good friends started at the same time as me, and he was from the area, so he just introduced me to all his friends.
Yeah, I think some people are really capable of that kind of thing, and other people, obviously, some folks are less inclined to make friends quickly. But I have heard, like, statistically, like, whereas 20 years ago people would say they have 10 close friends, now you might say you have 3 or 4 close friends. And I don't know what is the social change necessarily, besides maybe the internet, where you can maintain friendships over longer periods of distance. You don't need to totally restart every time someone moves away, but like, how many times do you think in a lifetime you could start net new and end up in a place that really feels like it has substance to it?
I think it's a lot easier when you're younger,
Yeah.
I feel like as you get older, I think once you hit 30, it's probably tougher to meet new people,
Yeah.
because people got shit going on too, like people start having, families and kids, and you ask your 35-year-old friend, with a wife and 3 kids, hey, you want to hang out? Be like, oh, I got you in 4 weeks or something. Like, they're not going to be free because they got their own shit going on.
Yeah.
To do.
It's just like the capacity that people have already built into their life. That's
right,
definite.
right, and you like are just not, able to fit in that because they have other stuff going on. So, and most people are also going to not be in your boat if you're in a new city, that age, just trying to, meet people.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little tougher. When you're 22 doing it, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah. Well, I'm not someone that ever moved away. I never went through that, but I get to meet new people at every chance of what I do in my work, and I really enjoy that side of it. But I think there's something about totally displacing yourself where you probably find out more about yourself by what you're not willing to put up with than what you are willing to put up with. It's like, you can be surprised by what you might enjoy in life, whether that's a new hobby or a new place to hang out. But I think like the more visceral thing is like, so these are the reasons we're not going to hang out again. Like this is why this friendship of Tinder has totally ended up with me swiping you the other way.
This is why. And I think that's a good way to put it, because you got to remember when you're moving to a city or like a new place that, like, to the Ohio point, these people or these friends that you make are going to have way different cultural upbringings, just in terms of like the East, Midwest, West Coast are so much different in terms of just personality types and just different types of childhoods. Like what type of neighborhood did you grow up in? Did you grow up in a suburb? Did you grow up in like a more urban, like city center? Like, did you grow up in like New York City, or did you grow up in,
Could you imagine?
Yeah, exactly. Did you grow up in Manhattan or something like that? So I think that's like a big thing, is that you don't realize, or it's hard for you to really put it into a characteristic until you meet people that, don't have the same like Midwestern values, or that, you meet people like, oh, this kid's so Cali. It's like stuff like that.
Yeah, like the stereotypes, like they're stereotypes in all parts of our life, but like when they get confirmed, like it's just kind of funny. It's hard to forget that guy being exactly what you expected that guy to be like. You're like, you smell like Abercrombie and Fitch all the time. Do I have a problem with that? No, but kind of.
But it's kind of funny how like
pisses me off.
Yeah. But it's like funny because will meet people and they kind of like, I guess like confirm like, okay, you're Cali as fuck or whatever. But then you're like, oh, this guy's sweet, kind of deal. Like,
yes.
And it's kind of funny how that ended up working out. Like I had a good friend in Salt Lake who's my roommate for a year, and he was from San Diego, surfed, played lacrosse in college. He was checking all the boxes for like San Diego. He was a great skier, all this stuff. Just like if I was like an adult and like this guy was like a 15-year-old, 16-year-old skateboarder, I'd be terrified of him, kind of deal. Like is a type of like I would like lock my doors if I saw that kid like skateboarding, just because like he's a typical Cali teen or something. But you meet him and like, oh, like these people are awesome. You know?
Do you think life would have been lacking without these kind of big moves that reminded you of what you would want in returning to Cincinnati?
No, because I don't think I would have ever, if I stayed in Cincinnati, would have ever been upset with myself for staying in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of a not homebody, but like old soul kind of. I've always loved Cincinnati, so I never was like itching to get out. I just kind of took where like life's path, gave me that option, gave me that door to move. So I was like, I'm gonna take this door. Like, why not? But I was never of the mindset I need to get out. I need to leave. I know a lot of people like that with their hometowns. But I definitely think it was beneficial in the long term, and it makes me appreciate what I have in Cincinnati way more than I would have if I just sticked around for, my entire life.
Yeah. And as you start to reach out to friends that like, folks like you and myself getting back together for the first time in 10 years, besides a couple of times we got to kick it in Boston.
Right.
Did it surprise you the way that door is reopened? Did it ever feel uncomfortable to reach back out to folks?
No, I think that's a good question, but I think as I got older and as I met more people, that like you just live in your head sometimes way too much, and you kind of start thinking like, what if this person doesn't want to hear from me, kind of deal. And typically people like aren't thinking about you, so like if you do reach out, they're gonna see that as a gesture of like, oh, like that's very nice of this person to like that they want to see me kind of deal. You know, that's when I texted like you, when I like hit up like Tim. I'd still keep in touch with Tim, like even when we lived in different cities. But I think that was like a pretty cool thing to like kind of like as you mature in age, you realize, you know, there's way more reception to, you know, those friendships and rekindling those old friendships. Because again, people are just friendly by nature, you know, for them, you know, especially here. So they want to see you, they want to talk to you.
Totally. Well, I always find it really impressive. Like, if I take the time, and I'm gonna be traveling to a city, like I got a bunch of friends in like the New Hampshire area through my buddy Evan, that they came to that show at the bike shop.
Is that like, was that where Jordan's from too? Is Jordan from?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, they're both from like that part of New Hampshire. Sandown. So they've got all these friends that, you know, maybe total I got 45 minutes of actual verbal connection with this person. But they've made space for me in my life, and the fact that I've made space for them, well, like they've made space in their life for me just to come in musically and be there, but also just to be a homie. When I'm not doing that, we can just kick it and have a beer. To feel like we both mutually decided like, oh no, I can make time for this. This is worth it to me.
Right.
That kind of particularity of relationship makes it much sweeter than the person that you see every single week, and it's just kind of a meh friendship. It's
right.
The oddity kind of adds some value to it.
Right.
So I think when a friend comes home and they hit you up for the first time in 10 years, like just the oddity of the experience adds some appeal to it.
It's a little bit like serendipity, you know?
Yeah.
And like, it's like me and you, like we probably would go a couple years without talking, you know, especially when you were gigging and I was like in college, and, you know, I'm back home for a week or two, you know, over winter, or, you know, maybe a couple days over Thanksgiving. So everyone gets so busy. So it's not like we really can like, hey, like, you want to hang out? It's like, we all got stuff going on. You know, I get it. So like we wouldn't talk for a couple years, but it still would be very like, oh, very glad to see each other. You know, be like, how you doing, man? We'd see each other at like the gym or something, at the rec, at the good old even old rec. Yeah. You know, and
where champions are made. And
then
look
like,
at Luke Kuechly.
Yeah.
It's in our water.
Where did he lift? You know? And we just like see each other, like just, you know, shoot the shit for a little bit, but I was like, oh yeah, dude, I miss Matt, like wonder how he's doing. So it was like stuff like that. So hit up Matt, you know, and it's so easy to see you because you're always playing shows. But yeah, I'll go out and get a beer and like see Matt play, and he'll have a 30-minute break or whatever and shoot the shit for a little bit there. Yeah. So
well, sometimes it feels fickle on my end to ask people to come to shows as a way of interacting together, because it feels like I'm asking you to support my work rather than spend time together, because I don't have that much time to give someone on a gig. And like that's kind of like the other end of the other side of the coin. When I message someone who I'm gonna see twice a year, but I know that I want to see them while I'm in town, and the only time I really got is when I'm on my break at this show, and a rando might pull me aside, and I might need to sell something to that rando or talk to them, or like sometimes it starts to feel emptying that interaction because you don't have the time to catch up the way you want to. But then there's also like you spend too much time talking to someone that you don't really know, and things fizzle out, and now it's like we need an escape plan.
Yeah, we gotta get out of this conversation. No, but coming from you, I mean, like people that know you, I mean, it's your job, so you have just different working hours than typical people because you're working nights. You know, you're gigging, you're traveling all the time, so you don't really have. I know you're married, so it's not like you have a lot of free time to, you know, grab a beer, because typically when people drink beer, you're working. So
yeah, exactly. Those are my 9 to 5 hours.
Right. But you have like kind of like the brilliance in your job that you can invite people to hang out with you at the office. It'd be like me saying like, hey, you want to sit next to me at my desk and like drink a beer, and like my boss like would be cool with that. You know, like that's the thing. Like, you're able to do that because that's what your job is all about. So yeah, I mean, I would like, because you've asked me a couple times. I've come out to some of your gigs. I've taken like no, like, oh, he's just trying to get me to like, you know, get his numbers up. Totally don't feel that.
Well, I think it depends on the friend and how well they know you.
Right.
Like for you and I, it's like we used to compete with ourselves of setting a PR of how many days in a row we could spend the night at each other's house and going back and forth. Like that's a different type of homie where I don't care how much time's passed. Like just hit me up when you're free. Versus some people want more of you than you have to give. Right. And oftentimes I find that with folks that met me through my work, and then they want me to be a close personal friend, and the only thing I really have to offer is like the transactional side of my work. Like Like we can talk on my breaks, but I can't kick it with you on my night off. You know, I can't do anything more than what I'm already doing. So there's an odd side of trying to gain friends alongside of make people into fans, because you're trying to sell something at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And you're trying to sell you personally, which is a weird thing because there's only so much of that to go around. You know, you can only talk to a couple of people after the show before it's like, I have to drive 3 fucking hours after this. Like, I gotta go.
And you want to, like, you know, keep Matt the person, you know, alive, and Matt the musician, you know, kind of like you obviously you blend them because like you're authentically yourself when you're performing, but you have to again put on the mask of I have to smile, I have to sell stuff, I have to, you know, do my job and make a living. So it's a kind of a delicate like line to cross, or kind of like you have to balance it so you're not you know, tanking yourself as a career, but you know, also not losing yourself as like a individual that has your own life.
Yeah, and this kind of thing helps me too, because like it's not too often that you and I would just sit down and talk for an hour and a half straight. It's like for people to make time for that kind of thing is a lot to ask on the side of both parties. Like you had to step out of work a little bit early, and I had to step away from recording for a little bit, but it's so much more meaningful just to actually get the uninterrupted time together than to, you know, try to do all things at once.
Right,
you know?
right. No, I totally get that.
Yeah. So as time goes on, do you think you're going to try to end up in Evendale proper, or does it not really matter to you?
I don't really think that matters to me.
Yeah.
It's funny because we're getting to that age where you see a little bit older, you know, but you know the older gen of Evendale kids are doing the great migration back home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Well, that's the weirdest thing about, like, you're kind of one of the first friends I've seen that went the full distance, was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
It's like, now he's back.
Now he's back. You know,
now watch
gonna
these fuckers come running back.
It's going to start happening. It's going to start happening soon.
Especially as people start to feel like before it was a FOMO of like, oh, I see them out living their life and I'm still here in Cincinnati.
Right.
Versus now it's like, oh, I miss what
You're
feels like home.
kind of sick. You know, like that's what people.
That was kind of gnar.
Yeah, that was kind of steezy.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird to watch people start to make the career moves to end up where they want to be 5 years from now. Because I think you're rather a quick turnaround. Like that first decade.
Oh, it was like 4 years, I think, from out of Ohio. So that's quick.
Yeah.
I think for most people.
And that first decade of your career is doing whatever it takes to now have some influence of what happens in that second decade. It's like, but you really have 2 options: take the job or don't take the job, and where you got to go is where you got to go.
Right.
So it's gonna be interesting to watch folks start to trickle back in, and also and I'm sure you've seen this, like the way that people either go for exactly what they grew up with or the exact opposite, and there's very little in the middle to me. It's like you either want to have the kind of family you grew up in, or you want nothing in that kind of semblance.
Yeah, or you want to, you know, live in Nepal, you know, at the base of Mount Everest. You know, it's very different.
Yeah. So do you feel like in time you want to have the same kind of lifestyle that you grew up in?
I think so. I think my parents did a really good job. You know, I think like they instilled good values, and you know, I have great relationships with both my parents, you know, and you know, my family as a whole. So I would not be upset if it, you know, ended up that way, you know.
Dude, I don't know why I was thinking about this. Yeah, I was talking to Em about salmon for some reason. I was like, I remember the first time I had salmon.
Oh, was that my house?
I was at my boy James Tony's house. I remember that shit turning my head around. Your mom was like,
awesome.
Do you like fish? And I was like, I don't know that I ever really had it. It was a beautiful slice.
Yeah.
But
That's
like,
so funny, man.
The memories of having a family dinner at your homie's house is so different than like, here's a pizza, get back in the basement.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
There's uncomfortable situations of being like a 13-year-old sitting at the table trying not to snicker too much about something and actually get to know their parents. So now when I see Tony at the gym or I see Monica out doing things, like I'm excited to see my friends' parents.
I love talking to my childhood friends' parents because like when you're a kid, you don't know how to talk to adults, man. Like you don't know what the hell to say. You're like oh, how's school going? Good. You know, how's soccer practice? Good. You know, like, can we go play like Lego Star Wars? Or, you know, like that's all you want to do is just like get the hell out of there and just like hang out with your buddy.
Yeah.
And then when you're an adult, you know, you get to see their personality a little bit more because they're talking to you as more of a peer as opposed to a child, and you also can, give a little bit more perspective.
Yeah.
So, I love those conversations now because you get to really know these people, these figures that you saw as a child on a more like complete level.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so much more eye to eye, and you never really saw that veil come down where it went to be us and them. It's like, I feel like once your friends move away and you see their parents more than you see your friends, that's when it all starts to kind of turn over. Like it was odd for me. I was always at a gig and I'd see someone's parents, and now it's like, oh, you come to my shows to drink and reminisce about your children. Like, yeah, I'll talk to you about your son who I haven't seen in years. I would love that. Because it starts to remind you too of like, I think of the great longing for all parents is not only to see their kids grow up and be successful, but optionally be the people that they spend time with. You know, for your kids to not only say like, "Hey, I need you in my life," but like, "I want you in my life." Like, if you raise your kids to the point where they see you as a friend more than just like a lineage.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I feel like that's the goal of every parent is like, I want my kids to want to spend time with me. You know, like, or at least subconsciously, that's what the goal should be for when they're adult. Make sure the kid's not too much of a shit, and also when they're 28, they hang out with me.
Totally, and for them to opt in, to never feel like you had to clench down on that, because if you never let go, the relationship is always parent to child. But if at some point you said like, "Hey, I'm here if you need me," and then it's more just like, do you want to go see the game together? Like, you want to go to the FC game together and have a beer? You want to go play rec league soccer together? It's like, that's a very different relationship to have with your parent.
And you see them more as like still your parent, but as that peer. You share interests. You can again talk to them more, give them advice, which is, I think, still really weird. Whenever I'm talking to my parents, I'm giving them advice sometimes. It's kind of like, damn, like how the tables have turned here. Yeah.
It's odd working with my dad as much as I do, because he's always been such an involved character in my business that, like, to some extent, we're way closer than we ever been. And on the other side of it, it's like, I feel like we only talk when I need you to help me with a hotel somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I wish we could not talk about work and just have a beer together.
Not talk shop, but yeah.
He's always like, you write a song today? I'm like, we've been drinking together since 10. We're on vacation. Like, he did that to me like maybe a year ago when we were in Florida. And I was pretty hammered at that point, so I wrote the weirdest song called I Found on the Internet, and like, without the looper and the production, it doesn't make any sense. So I came back like 2 hours later and I showed it to him, and he's like, "That's what you've been doing?" I was like, all right, we need to check out of work mode, because I don't think you're seeing what I'm seeing.
I'm not operating at my best right now.
Exactly, I'm at a deficit. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today, brother. I appreciate you a lot. As time goes on, you think you're going to get into more musical hobbies? Any instruments you're taking on next?
Oh, man, dude, there's so many instruments I want to learn, dude. Like, the thing is that I need to get, like, way more, I want to say competent, because I feel like I'm pretty competent at guitar, But, like, I feel like I just need to get better. I always want to get better, kind of deal. Before I jump to another instrument, I kind of want to make sure that I've got a pretty decent belt, not a black belt, but maybe get to that brown belt level, kind of deal.
Somewhere where you're lethal enough with someone that doesn't know what they're doing. It's like,
I always
not party tricks.
Exactly,
it's facility.
Exactly. Something that you can kind of throw some chops down and get the work done. But I mean, the stringed instrument, just that whole family is just so interesting.
Yeah,
so
there's a new bag.
I've always loved the banjo. I've always seen the banjo as such a Americana, just classic, cool instrument. And then the mandolin, but I feel like once you kind of get good at, guitar, kind of, start getting that, more dialed in, mandolin you can easily pick up. Probably same with the banjo. Banjo's weird because you have those finger, steel picks on your hands and so much stuff going on. And then in terms of like super weird niche stuff, have you ever heard of like an oud, O-U-D? Yeah, it's like
it's like a single string.
No, it has 4 strings. It's fretless.
Okay.
It's there's a couple of varieties, but it's from like Arabic music. So like Turkey has like a variety. I think like Egypt has a variety, but they just have you can get some sick sounds out of that. Just really cool stuff. I don't know where you buy one, and like I don't know how you begin to like figure that out, but I forget the guy's name, but I saw some like Tiny Desk concert, like NPR, and it's some I think he might have been Moroccan. He was Moroccan or Turkish, and he was just ripping this thing, and I was just like, I want to do that, you know.
Well, when we get the band back together, I'm playing drums. You're playing oud.
Yeah, there you
we'll
go.
Let Sam play accordion. We'll
Yeah,
just be-
Sam will play whatever he wants to play.
Damn straight,
when,
brother.
when he's feeling that day. Yeah.
Well, Jake, welcome home, my brother. I
Thank you,
missed
friend.
man.
Thank you, friend.
Friends, if you see Jake Mazzone in public, make sure you talk to him about something off topic. We love you, players. Peace.